where do we go from here? Where do we go from a point in which 5 unelected judges decided to redefine our most basic and fundamental institution in the law? Where do we go in a country in which, after 50 million Americans voted for the truth of marriage, that we had our unelected masters say, no, they're wrong, that our view of marriage will trump yours, and you will now live under this new regime. And if you don't accept it, you will be punished, you will be repressed, you will be marginalized. Where do we go? Well, like many of you, the day after the decision was very tough. How many were depressed the day after the decision? Raise your hands. I think we're all united in this. But I want to tell you this. There is no time for depression. There is no time for wringing our hands. This is the time to move forward with a vision, with goals, with tactics, to stand for that which cannot be changed. The most important thing when we start with vision, which I think Kathy laid out very well, is understanding where we're at. Did the Supreme Court change the definition of marriage? No. Marriage is today what marriage was before Obergefell. Marriage is by its nature the union of one man and one woman. All that the court did, as significant as it is put a lie into the law. And when we try to create a vision for the future, it is important to understand what has occurred in the past. This is not the first time that a court, a legislature, a parliament, a king has put a lie into the law. In our own country, was it true when the court issued the Dred Scott decision that some human beings were not fully human beings? Was that true? Was it true that we were allowed to buy and sell people? Was it true when the court said this was okay, that states had to take fugitives under the Fugitive Slave Act? States in the North had to send them back to a life of slavery in the South. Was it true? No, it was not true. And some states said, no, we will not obey. Was it true in the Buck v. Bell decision that 3 generations of imbeciles are enough, and that the state was allowed to sterilize, force sterilization? We had a court say this was so. Was it true? No, it was not true. So we are not at a new point in history. Many times in the history of Christianity, we have been in a situation in which the established order, the legal order, is at fundamental odds with the truth. And in order to have a vision for the future, we need to have a vision of who we are. Where do we come from? We come from a faith that at those points in history in which things looked most dire, at those points in history where there were martyrs saying, I will not bow to you, Caesar, that we grew, that others looked at us and said, I want to be that. I want to have that conviction. We come from a faith in which a man like William Wilberforce can be mocked, derided, told that he would never stop the slave trade. But because his convictions were so firm, because he knew that he was advocating for the truth, he kept going in the face of overwhelming odds. And it wasn't in his lifetime that he saw the slave trade banned. It was later. But did it matter? He obeyed what he was meant to do. He stood against all odds, and he helped change history. Dr. King, the civil rights movement. Dr. King, very clearly, letters from a Birmingham prison says a law that does not comport with the law of God is not a law at all. Reverberating through the centuries from Augustine, Aquinas, that is where we come from. That is where we come from. So instead of being depressed, we should savor the fact that we live at a point in history, like those times before, in which we can stand for the truth, make a difference, and God has put us here for some reason. This fight is not over. It has just begun. There is a lie in the law. Now the question is, what do we do to overturn the lie, and do we accept it? No. So in my view, that is the vision of who we are. Our goals. What are our goals? Well, marriage, as I said, is what it was before the decision. It is a rock. So there are 4 goals that I think the movement needs to concentrate on in the coming years. We must continue to affirm the truth that marriage is, by its nature, the union of one man and one woman. That sounds quite simple, but I get emails all the time from folks saying, it's very tough. I posted something on my Facebook page supporting natural marriage, and people are attacking me. This is just too difficult. I don't know if I'm going to keep going. Please, folks, where do we come from? The martyrs died for their faith. 21 men just died for their faith. We can't have a post on our Facebook page. We're worried what some people may say about us. That is not where we come from. In every way that we can, we need to continue to speak boldly the truth that marriage is the union of a man and a woman. In our workplaces, in our personal lives, we must do so with love, but we cannot be cowed or silenced. That is what the law is being used to do. When you see the baker sued by the state, when you see private actions against a videographer for not taking part in a same-sex wedding ceremony, when you see donors' names leaked by the IRS, what is the purpose? The purpose is to silence you. And it's only up to you whether you'll be silenced. So number 1, continue to affirm the truth that marriage is the union of a man and a woman. Number 2, reject this decision. This is a very unique decision in which each of the justices issued dissents. Please, if you've not read the dissents, read the dissents. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court says, advocates are going to be out celebrating this decision, but one thing is sure, they're not celebrating the Constitution. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is saying something like this. We must continue to reject this decision and not in any way accept the reasoning that has led to this. I'm trying to go quickly here because the next 2 are critical. Third, overturn the decision. As hard as it seems right now, as difficult as it seems, there is no way that religious liberty will be completely protected in this country as long as this decision stands. There is no way that the truth of marriage will be lived as fully as it should live as long as this lie remains in our law. We have to work to overturn this decision. And there's a lot that we need to do and strategies to get to this point. It may take decades. It may take more. But let me tell you this. After Roe versus Wade, there was a ton of depression in the pro-life movement. It was not all cheery and hopeful. It was very, very difficult. But a few leaders stood up and said, we are going to work to overturn this decision. There is too much at stake. And by 1976, the Hyde Amendment had been passed. And you move to today, where our country has become more and more and more pro-life. Younger people are more and more pro-life. If back in 74 and 75, pro-lifers would have simply said, well, there's no way we're going to ever be able to overturn this, you would not have the vibrancy of the pro-life movement today. Fourth, we must contain until we can overturn the decision, we must contain the damage that the decision creates. It's a piece of legislation before Congress. We currently have 146 co-sponsors of the First Amendment Defense Act. States like North Carolina have passed bills that allow magistrates not to take part in same-sex, quote-unquote, marriages. Everywhere we can, we need a robust protection of religious liberty. So those are the four goals. A-R-O-C, A-ROC, marriage, A-ROC, affirm, reject, overturn, contain. Now I want to very briefly talk about what the National Organization for Marriage is doing and our five-point plan. It's important we have these goals, but there's going to be a lot of different ways to get to this end. In every area of life, in culture, in politics, in the media, in academia, we have an elite that is working to undermine our vision of marriage. In all of those areas, we need bold leaders to step up to the plate and continue to stand for the truth. I will bluntly caution, though, against one view that I worry is becoming somewhat prevalent on our side, and that's the idea that, there's a constant tendency to quietism, to the idea that politics is a dirty, messy place, and so Christians should just stay out of it. And sometimes that comes in the form now of, well, we just need to concentrate on culture. Let's just leave politics alone. I think that would be a disastrous move. The advances made by the pro-life movement have been on the cultural side, but also the political side. Partial birth abortion bans, the movement forward, the Hyde Amendment, stopping some abortions around the world, stopping your taxpayer money going to abortions around the world. These are all critical. And politics is not downstream of culture. There's a dialectic. Political change affects culture. Politics is a part of culture. When we change the law, we change the culture. So law is a critical component of culture, and we need to be working in both areas, not at odds with one another. That means it's very important that we are involved in the presidential election. NAM has made a presidential pledge, just as we did a few years ago. 4 candidates have signed that pledge. There's a lot that a president can do. It's critical that we have a president that's willing to not only give lip service to marriage, but actually stand up and do something. The appointments that the next president will have could change this 5-4 decision. That could change everything. So we will be running ads. We will be a part of the political process, and it's important to know that folks like Ben Carson, Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, and Ted Cruz signed our pledge, and others did not. Secondly, we need to hold the GOP accountable. The Republican Party remains a party that in its platform supports marriage is the union of a man and a woman. There are powerful forces, billionaires like Paul Singer, Cliff Asness, and others trying to erase marriage and life from the Republican Party. It is important to stand up and demand that the Republican Party not only give lip service to marriage, but actually will do something to support it. That's why we will be involved in primaries across the country, and it's important that you folks know actually where your candidates stand and make sure to only support those candidates that will actually do something to advance the truth about marriage. We'll not sit back, we'll stand up for religious liberty. Third, I briefly mentioned the First Amendment Defense Act. It is critical that we stop the government from engaging in discrimination against those of us who know the truth about marriage. The First Amendment Defense Act would stop the government from, in contracts, in our 501c3 status, in our ability to get grants, in any way the federal government could punish churches and organizations and individuals that stand for the truth of marriage. It would stop that. It's important that we get behind legislation like that and we pass it. I think we can get a vote this year in the House. Our president will not likely sign if we get it out of the House and Senate, but it puts people on paper as to where they stand. And again, it'll be a 2 or 3 year process, but if we have a president that would sign such legislation, there are real people that will be harmed if this legislation is not passed. There will be more Baronel Stutzmans. There will be more videographers. This is the sort of thing that we need on both the state and federal level, and it's critical that we support that. In each of your own lives, it is critical that you do not give up, that you do not cave in, that you live out the truth that marriage is the union of a man and woman. I joke with others. I have 8 children. My wife is not here. And my wife and other folks that I talk to say, when we get back home, our wives often say, well, you're out there fighting for marriage, but we need you back home more often. And I think all of us need to take that to heart. We do need to boldly stand through our voice for the truth of marriage, but we also, and perhaps more importantly, need to live it out day to day, to be a shining example. To be a shining example to others of the beauty, of the love that God has given us through this great mystery that we are created male and female, that in coming together, we create new life. This is a great and beautiful mystery. History and the universe does indeed arc towards justice. History does indeed arc towards truth. But it takes good and loving, mundane, but heroic individuals who refuse to capitulate to the spirit of the age, who stand up, no matter how difficult it may seem, for the core truth of both faith and reason. In our time, that fight is about the very nature of what it means to be a human being, what it means to be created male and female, what it means to be in a marriage. I cannot think of anything more important, more basic, more beautiful, and more critical to all of our lives together than to stand boldly, unashamedly, for the truth that marriage is today and will always be the union of one man and one woman. Thank you.